Hello, I am Ryan Rao.
And I am Logan Zevny.
And welcome to the Real Talk Podcast, your final destination to discuss anything indie, niche, or otherwise twee. Today we have a very special guest and my friend, Luke Ledbetter.
Hello.
So, Logan, what are we covering today?
We are looking at the trailer for Asteroid City, Wes Anderson's newest project.
Well, I mean, we could start with his dialogue. It's very much that sort of, we see again that sort of rapid fire dialogue that he very much likes to have, where there's like no downtime in between anything that's being said.
He has a very dry humor, a lot of wit there. I know that you love a certain line from Rushmore, where it's staying indefinitely, I'm getting sued for divorce. Very good, sir.
And how long will you be staying with us, Mr. Blue?
Indefinitely. I'm being sued for divorce.
Very good, sir.
This is a very blue film. He loves to work with vibrant pastel colors, has very... his films look very distinct. It's interesting because this is somewhat monochrome in its color scheme because you have the pale oranges of the desert and like the blue of eyes and cars in the sky, but it's a much more basic color scheme than some of his other works.
It definitely, it seems to be very inspired from that sort of 60s, mid-60s, like a sort of nuclear war era type thing, where it has the very similar color palette of sort of those cartoons that were coming out at that time, you know, the Stay Aware or the Duck and Cover type of things, which is very bright and colorful despite the sort of dark nature of it.
Definitely. Moving into some of Wes Anderson's more written style, I think that Woodrow is going to be a very interesting character in this movie. Wes has always been very good with doing coming-of-age stories with adolescent characters. You have Zero from the Grand Budapest Hotel and Sam from Moonrise Kingdom, both very confused characters kind of finding their place in life. And of course you have Max Fisher from Rushmore, played by Jason Schwartzman. Woodrow seems to kind of fit into that similar kind of stoic niche, which looks exciting.
I mean, it is always very interesting because he has a very archetypical kind of like main character that he usually goes for, where at least sometimes he likes to throw in someone who's very sort of egocentric and narcissistic. You know, you see that the Royal Tenenbaums with Royal, you see that in Rushmore with Max, you see that in nearly all of his films, including Grand Budapest, where you have the concierge who's very much in that same vein. So I'm interested to see if he sort of picks it up again, has that place within this movie as well.
Certainly also got like Steve Zissou in there too, that fits the bill as well.
I also noticed when you talked about how he uses bluish colors in his main theme of the story he has. They also depict vivid saturation throughout the scenes and makes the art style of it realistic and more of a comedy and drama.
It's definitely very interesting how he sort of plays around with that, where he can have a very sort of bright and colorful background, but then the story itself is something sort of dark and gritty, and that very much comes out in sort of the more adult humor that he likes to put into his films, I would say.
Certainly. I think that his dollhouse aesthetic, as a lot of people like to call it, where he uses bright pastel colors and whimsical settings, it really adds a bigger punch when the characters go through their more dark moments, which it is always very adult characters with intense issues that he deals with most often.
And how the colors also show the character's position in the story. Mm-hmm. Like how in the Grand Budapest Hotel, the main character like wore like purple outfits, so like showed true resemblance to their characters' roles, and how the outsiders were more grayish coloring, showed how they were more colorized to showing general issues in the movie.
Yeah, sort of like that gray kept that neutral. You saw that with the lawyer. You also have the author himself, who we see at the beginning of the movie, who has that neutral color, and that sort of goes in to show that these are these neutral characters towards the issues that are at hand, and they are only trying to do their best to be sort of a mediary role, and that's always very interesting. But with Asteroid City, it definitely seems like he's following another trend. Like I said earlier, the colors seem very inspired from like that 60s doomsday cartoon era type of thing, and that also sort of follows another trend of the iconography of the film.
He's never really been one to use a lot of iconography in his films. In The Royal Tenenbaums, it's set in New York, although they never actually show any like real landmarks. It always feels more so like he picks a setting from the real world, but once that's established, it kind of falls into a fictionalized version of that. Like the Grand Budapest Hotel doesn't feel like it's set in Germany or any like European nation. It feels like it's set in this idealized, nostalgic, and sentimentalized thought of what that could be.
Yeah, it's very interesting. A thing that personally noticed just like watching his films and watching the trailer is he likes to take inspiration from ideas or things that are in the real world. You know, like with the Grand Budapest Hotel, there's a lot of similar to like Nazi imagery and the rise of that party there. And I think that with Asteroid City, like I said earlier, drawing from that 60s era type of thing, it seems like he's taking that and almost exaggerating it in this world. He's also following that other trend of like sort of making his own locations, like you said with Grand Budapest. It doesn't necessarily feel like you're in any particular place. It is sort of like he does play a little bit with origins and nationality there, but it doesn't necessarily stay in line with something particular like that. It's more of a world that he likes to craft, drawing emphasis and inspiration from the real world.
Moving on from that, this is actually going to be the first sci-fi feature from Wes Anderson that I am thoroughly excited for. It seems like it's going to be a different take from most sci-fi things. It's going to be very rural and nostalgic. I feel like it's going to kind of be an interesting new direction, going back to like you were saying, the 50s, 60s style of sci-fi.
Yeah, no, I definitely say it'll be interesting to see what he does with that. One thing that I'm very interested to see is if he uses one of his very favorite things, claymation, that sort of thing, or stop motion film on the new film. Because, I mean, you see in things like the Life Aquatic, where he will use claymation to make things that aren't quite real.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that would be interesting. Like, you have nearly alien-like fish within that movie, and I think it'll be interesting to see if he does something with the aliens and the claymation in Asteroid City.
Yeah, definitely in Life Aquatic and in some of the wider shots from Grand Budapest, he likes to integrate some scaled models to kind of better enhance his world. So yeah, I could definitely see him using creative methods there to enhance his style with that.
But I would definitely say the scaling that he does with that is very interesting as well. Because, I mean, if you notice in the Grand Budapest, he sort of takes large thing and he makes them small. You know, see that with like the elevator that they have where it's far away and it just minimizes these things. Whereas in something that I noticed from what we can see from the trailer is you have things like the little sci-fi gun that they show off or the meteor where they're both very small. Mm-hmm. He likes to play around a lot with size. And he does that as well with the UFO that we see. Because it's very large in comparison to some of the other sci-fi stuff that he shows off. And it is, once again, very the old idea of what a UFO is. You know, you get the flying saucer type of thing.
Moving on from that, as you guys may know, Wes Anderson is very meticulous, and he has amassed a troupe of trusted actors that he can count on to really take direction and fill the role. This movie is going to have quite a few of his mainstay actors.
For the new movie, Asteroid City, actors that will be reappearing from previous films would include Jason Schwartzman, Adrian Brody, Tilda Swinton, Willem Dafoe, Edward Norton, Jeff Goldblum, and Tony Revolori.
And yeah, you were speaking about that. Schwartzman is actually returning for this movie. He has been in quite a few Anderson movies, 6 at the time of recording, although he hasn't had a big role in them since Rushmore in 98 and The Darjeeling Limited in 2007. This is his first film since Rushmore, like he's the proper star of it. Actually, it took me quite a while to realize it was Schwartzman. He has gone a long way since Max Fisher. The beard, really, he's a whole new character.
Yeah, if you had told me that after I'd watched Rushmore, I probably wouldn't have known unless you had said something.
You didn't know until I told you. But yeah, moving on, he does like to work with a lot of same actors, and the most notable of this is Bill Murray. Bill Murray and Wes Anderson have had a very close connection during Wes Anderson's career. Obviously, Bill Murray signed on to Wes's second film, Rushmore, in 1998, and he signed on because he loved the script and took a wage of $9,000, which was low then, still low now. He is not going to be appearing in Asteroid City due to complications with COVID, but they are very close. During the filming of Rushmore, actually, Wes Anderson wanted to do a helicopter shot for a montage, and he didn't have the funds. So Bill Murray wrote him a $25,000 check. He was going to go into Rushmore at a $16,000 deficit. To this day, apparently, Wes Anderson still has the check. He did not cash it, and they did not use the scene. They pivoted. But yeah, it's going to be different. He's being recast by Steve Carell, which is pretty big. Wes Anderson is a pretty big name. He is working with Tom Hanks and Steve Carell in this movie.
So Ryan, how do you think the role change from Bill Murray to Steve Carell will depict the absence of Bill Murray? Like, how do you think Steve Carell would make the movie and like the scene flow throughout the movie?
Anderson's always been very good at finding actors that can fit their roles very well and that can bring their own deliberate direction to the role. I don't think I've ever really thought he miscast anybody, and I think that's why he has his troupe in so many films, just because he has a very intimate connection with his actors and they bring, I'd say, as much to the table as he does as the director. So I'm sure Steve Carell is going to do a very good job. From what I know of Steve Carell from interviews and such, he's a very thoughtful and soft-spoken person, and I'm sure that he can really find the core of the character and do a good job, but it is pretty significant that Bill Murray is going to be out of this one.
Yeah. On top of that, too, is Wes Anderson is a very specific director. Maybe not specific. He's very...
Meticulous?
Yes, meticulous, and what he wants in his movies and how he expects his actors to act. And I know that there's a lot of people who, watching interviews and things, have said that they couldn't necessarily get along with that, or maybe there's people who felt that they clicked with that, where they don't necessarily have to do as much thinking, maybe. It's interesting, because that should sort of levy problems with having a new recast in that position, because he's very particular in how he has people. I mean, if you look at movies like The French Dispatch, where he would have people's movement to a beat, which, I mean, he's done plenty of times in the past, but it would be for more extended periods of time. It's very interesting how he sort of pieces all that together.
Mm-hmm. This film is going to be taking place in the 1950s. It'll be a period piece, which he's actually departed somewhat from contemporary films since The Darjeeling Limited in 2007. This is going to be following that trend. Asteroid City will premiere at the Cannes Film Festival in May. This follows Moonrise Kingdom and The French Dispatch, which both premiered at the same festival. He also has The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar releasing through Netflix this fall. No trailers have been released yet, but I'm sure we are all waiting in bated breath for that. Thank you to our production associates, Brandon and Chloe, and our guest star, Luke Ledbetter. Tune in next week when we look at 2022's The Whale, starring Brendan Fraser.